Well, that's a crummy way to start a stream. Hi, everybody. How are y'all doing? Happy Saturday. This is our last Saturday tutorial stream for a while. Possibly forever, possibly not. We are switching to a new streaming model next week. So we'll be streaming live tutorials on Wednesday and Thursday only. And then Friday's still going to be Zoom and freeform alternating, and then Saturday's just going to be a sale starting at 6:30. So we're going to see how that works. If you guys feel like you're not getting enough educational content, then I will revisit adding back some of the tutorials that I've taken away. But for now, we're going to go with this experiment for a couple of weeks. Also, I'm so sorry that I canceled the stream last night. I was just not feeling myself in the sense of didn't even come to work. I was that tired and just wrecked and feeling awful. And yeah, I think something about working 3 birthday parties in 2 days last weekend might have caused myself to not be feeling so good. So I'm so happy to be back with you guys tonight, and we are doing this project this evening. So I call this one knotting for the neck mess. So for anybody who's not familiar with what a neck mess is, it's a very trendy, catchphrasey kind of term for basically just putting on a whole bunch of necklaces and not being so worried about whether they're all layered evenly. Things can overlap. Usually when you see, if you go on Instagram and you search neck mess, you're going to see a lot of, and I'll go ahead and pull up one of my favorite Insta people for neck messes. So you'll typically,
Allison's my favorite person.
aw, thanks. But so, and this is, Winter Lemon Jewelry on Insta. She's awesome at curating her neck messes. That being said, I think she has way more money than I do, so she has more options to play with, but she does do some really cool stuff. So this is a pretty good, especially because it has an example of what we're about to do right smack in the middle of it. All right, so this is a neck mess for anybody who's not familiar. So it's okay, I don't want to, it's a reel, but okay, so this is a neck mess with all of the, yes, stop phone, all the stuff kind of overlapping, and camera, will you focus please?
Nope.
I know, right? It really won't. It's really annoying, because what we're doing is right in the middle. Let's see if I can get the hand cam to focus. All right. Will you focus? Yay, you will focus. That's awesome. Okay, so this one right here, right in the middle, this is what we're going to do today. So we're going to take some, I'm going to use some pearls, and we're going to knot them with 2 loops at the end. And so what that allows you to do, God, why are you so skippy? What that allows you to do is use these cool clippy rings, and everyone on the Beading Dreams stream loves a good clippy ring. So I'm going to just knot them with 2 large circles at either end, and then you can use a variety of different clippy rings. There's all of these different varieties of the clippy rings that you can use to, kind of add embellishments and make your neck mess look ultra cool. You can even, and I have this on my South Sea Pearls, you can even take these cool little diamond, hi Corvus, these cool little diamond guys, which are designed for the diamond lobsters to clasp into them, but you can also, okay, I really do not like this, the way this camera is acting tonight. Of course, I moved my camera and now I can't find my sweet spot. Okay, so there we go. So you can use these little diamond rings as well if you want a fancier end. What I'm actually going to do this evening for this project is I am going to deconstruct this toggle clasp. This was an interesting conversation that I had with a client earlier today about, he was looking for a particular part to make prayer beads with, and I was having difficulty finding the part, but then I said, you really could just buy an inexpensive set of these if it has the part you want, and take them apart, use the parts you need, and make something new. And he's like, you can do that? Like, yeah, you really can. So I'm deconstructing this toggle clasp in order to make 2 large soldered rings for my knotting project. Now also when I'm doing these front closures with my knotting, I'm just going to see if, is it better without the face? Not really. When I'm doing these front closures for knotting, I like to use bouillon instead of, really, that's just annoying, stop it. I like to use bouillon instead of bead tips because it's a prettier look at the front of your neck. Autofocus, you and I are going to need to have a talk before the stream tonight. Like, why are you focusing on that stuff? Nobody wants to look at that stuff. Get out of the frame. Okay, so now, there we go, now it's focused, yay! So it's just a nicer closure in the front with the bouillon than it would be with a bead tip, or even a crimp bead. So, what do I need in order to do this project? I am going to need something to knot. So I picked this strand of freshwater pearls, which is really pretty and I think is a little underappreciated. I'm going to need my knotting tweezers, some kind of a sharp scissors. I'm going to need hypo cement. I'll grab that in a minute because I forgot to. You're going to need your 2 soldered rings. So to make those, I'm just going to go ahead and take my wire cutters and just cut apart. So this is an adjustable toggle. So the idea here is, you know, you can put it onto a necklace and have 3 slightly different lengths. But the cool thing about it is since I only need 2 rings, so I'm just going to cut that ring that's holding them together to release my soldered ring. Maybe. And then I'm going to do the same with this other one. So there we go. So there's my two large soldered rings. Maybe. There we go. 2 large soldered rings. And I still have actually a usable teeny tiny toggle, which is nice. So I can set that aside. I'm also going to need some bouillon. So this is, bouillon is also called French wire. It's this little kind of springy coil. It looks kind of like a slinky, but it is not. So don't pull on it. It's actually extremely delicate. So I'm going to need, hi Lori, I'm going to need just a little bit of that. I need about a slightly less than a ½ inch per side. And this you need to cut with a really sharp scissors or wire cutter because it has a tendency, if what you're cutting with isn't sharp, it's just going to squish, which is not what we want. So I like to use my snips, and so I'm just going to cut myself 2 pieces of that. One might be a little long, but 1 and 2. Okay, so there's my 2 little pieces of bouillon. Once again, it is fragile, so you want to treat it kindly. Put it back in its little box for safekeeping. Alright, and I'm going to put those in my little tray over here so I don't lose them. I'm also going to need some knotting cord. Oh, this is a light, Corvus. Here, I can try and get it off the camera, at which I admirably did not succeed. Nope, still on camera. That's okay. But it is not a worm. So I'm going to need some knotting cord. I'm going to use some nylon cord for this project today. I'm also going to need a twisted wire beading needle. So this is what you use when you are using cord. Okay, chain or wire, the gold thing. Corvus. Are you talking about on my neck? I'm sorry, Corvus. I'm very confused. Help a girl out. So I'm going to need a twisted wire needle. That's what you use when you are using cord that comes on a spool like this. And I may need some, hi sweet, and I may need some little 3mm beads. I just had it on my hand. So these? Oh, okay. That was actually a toggle clasp that I cut apart. It was a three strand toggle clasp. Well, not three strand. It's triple adjustable toggle clasp. And so all I did was I cut the rings that were holding the small rings that were holding the larger rings together, so that I could use two of the larger rings for my project tonight. So once again, repurposing objects for things that you didn't necessarily, that they weren't necessarily intended for, but will work great for this project. So I'm going to start with my cord. So whenever you're using cord off a spool like this, you're going to be working with it doubled, so you need to be aware of that. And in order to successfully knot, you typically need about 3 times the finished length, and so then we're going to double that, so I'm going to need 6 times the finished length. These are about 16 inches, so I'm just going to round that up to 18 inches because it's easier, and I've got 18 inches ruled out before me, so I'm just going to do 6 of those. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, when you're knotting, you want to make sure that you're going to pick the right size. You need a size of cord that's going to make a knot that's big enough that your beads won't go over it, but of course the cord has to go through the beads, so I'm using a size 1. In these nylon cords that you're working with off of a spool, since you're going to be working with them doubled, you'll tend to work with smaller numbers of cord than you would if you were using like the Griffin silk. So we do a lot of knotting here with 0 and a lot of knotting here with 1. I'm going to take my twisted wire needle, which you can see a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and thread my cord through my twisted wire needle, and I'm going to pull it down all the way until the ends are even. And then I'm just going to tie a knot at the end. Just a basic knot. This is not going to be part of your final piece. It's just, its only purpose is to keep the beads from falling off when you are stringing them. So now I'm going to do my first end with my bullion and my large soldered ring. So I'm going to take my strand of pearls and I'm going to cut it. And I'm going to pull one off the end. Alright, and what I'm going to do, so when you do this, you need to be aware that whichever end you string on second is what's going to be closest to the clasp. So since this pearl is a little tapered, I want actually the taper closest to the fastener, so I'm going to string it on with that point upwards. I'm going to pull that all the way down so that it's just resting there against my knot. Then I'm going to take my bullion, and I feel like I made these pieces a little too big, so I'm just going to cut them down just a tad. Because I mean, it's not about the bullion's just a more attractive way to finish it in the front. So now I'm going to very carefully pick up a piece of bullion. Yes, I totally did just like my finger. Nobody lose your damn minds. So I'm going to pick up my bullion. Oh, this is what you were talking about, Corvus. This is it's a coil actually. So it is called French wire or bullion. It's also used in the embroidery field of fiber arts, but we use it here when we're making knotted jewelry to protect our thread from our end so that it doesn't wear and break. So I'm going to take that bullion and carefully slide it. Sorry, I got there eventually. You know me, I'll get there eventually. Sometimes it just takes time. Okay, so now so I've got my pearl, I've got my bullion. I'm gonna take my soldered ring and I'm gonna put that onto my cord. And then I'm gonna take my needle down through my pearl, going back towards that initial knot that I made. like so. And then I'm just going to pull this all the way through. And it's going to want to kind of tangle, so just take your time. And what's going to happen is your bouillon is going to pull down to a little loop, like that. There we go. So now I've got just my nice little loop of bouillon that's holding my soldered ring. And then I'm going to go ahead and tie this short string here around my long string. And I'm just going to do a double half hitch. So 1 half hitch, 2 half hitches. And then this is just going to hang out here until after I've glued my knots, which I'm going to do at the end. So now I'm just going to string all of my pearls onto my thread. So we did do this technique once before in a tutorial that I think I called, well, hello, Caleb Martinson, welcome in. How are you doing?
Caleb!
Obviously Heather knows you. So welcome. We're knotting pearls today. So we did this technique in a tutorial a while back. It was a while back, called professional knotting with bouillon or something like that. So this is how we knot pearls when we're doing them, like for jewelers. The bouillon tends to be a little bit more refined finish, and then the way that I'm doing the knotting actually makes it go significantly faster than the way we teach beginners to knot. Now, that being said, if you don't know what you're doing and you try to knot this way, you could wind up with a tangle. But if you're pretty confident in your knotting ability, then this is a really good way to make your knotting less time consuming. So I'm just stringing this entire strand of pearls onto my doubled cord. The only one that has a knot right now is the end one. Okay, the rest of these are just loose on the cord. And then I'm going to go back and place the knots in between them. The reason that this is faster is because you aren't switching back and forth from one task to another. You're not having to pick up and put down your tools constantly. So it just makes the workflow a lot easier and better. So that's my lecture on why this is more efficient. I also did pick some fairly large pearls so that I will theoretically be done, or mostly done, with this by the end of our tutorial time. So now that there's a few more of you, I just want to remind you that next week we're going to a new streaming schedule. So we're cutting down to 2 tutorials a week. There will be a tutorial on Wednesday night, followed by a chatting stream. And then there will be a tutorial on Thursday night that will still be a Torch Thursday tutorial. Friday night is going to remain, alternating Freeform Friday and Zoom. And then Saturday is only going to be a sale. I'm just stringing beads at the moment, Corvus. It's only going to be a sale on Saturdays. Like, all I'm doing right now is I'm just continuing to string all of these beads onto this cord. But yes, you can watch me do that. Yeah, so the beads are just going on the cord at the moment. So nothing really exciting has happened yet except for that first bouillon finish. No, not yet. Still stringing. But getting close to being done. So Lori, how's the weather? We're back up into the 50s here, which I'm not gonna lie is nice. Though my garden once again has no idea what to do. And I have hyacinths and they always start coming up too early and then they bloom when they're just like this high. So last year I started calling them loisynths as well. Hi Lisa, hello, hello, hello. We've got a couple viewers from Cali on. Corvus is in Cali and Lisa Jackson is in Cali, and I don't know that any of our other regular California people are on, but Thank you. Welcome, welcome. All right, so that is it. That's all my beads just strung onto my cord. So once again, the only one that's currently knotted is the first one here that I did right at the beginning. All the rest of these are just loose on the cord. I'm going to go to, not to the very end of my cord, but kind of midway between where my beads end and my needle is, and I'm going to tie a slip knot. Excuse me. Goodness gracious. Hello, Real Kitty 56. Love that handle. That's fantastic. And your avatar is great. Love it, love it. Okay, so now I'm going to take, so once again, I'm just midway between where my beads end, right here, and then where my needle is at the other end of my cord, and I'm going to tie a slip knot. So a slip knot is the kind of knot that you can tie and then you can just pull it out. So the way you're going to do that is you're just going to wrap that cord around your fingers and then reach through, grab a loop, and pull it through. So if I want to make this knot go away, all I have to do is pull it and it will come right out, theoretically. What have I done? Hold on, I don't know what I did. I did something weird. Yay! Well, we're so glad that you found our YouTube. And there are so many archive tutorials out there on YouTube. Oof. Okay, well, somehow I managed to completely screw this up, and I'm not sure how. I'm just gonna go with probably hubris. Okay, there we go. But sometimes what happens with the cord, if it's trying to pass through a tight spot, is it'll twist, and that's actually what happened to me. So I wound up with a twist in the middle there, which is why it didn't pull evenly. But so I'm gonna go ahead and once again tie my slip knot, because I pulled the last one out. And that's just gonna keep my beads from falling off of my cord while I'm knotting on the other side. So I don't need to worry about that end of the cord. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back to, hi Barb. Yes, that definitely requires lots of careful paying attention for any strange noises. I feel like that would be the first indicator that something was going wrong, is noises and crashes of some sort. Okay, so now Corvus, I'm gonna start to knot. So the way that you knot when you've got all of your beads already on your cord is you're just going to take the beads in your dominant hand. So this is my right hand. I'm a right-handed person. Also, there's lipstick on my hand. Whoops. Awesome. The no noise is worse. It's true. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so I'm going to take my beads in my dominant hand and I'm going to wrap them around the fingers of my non-dominant hand, and then I'm going to pull them through that knot. Then I'm going to take my tweezers. I'm going to follow through that knot and grab right next to my pearls, and notice I'm grabbing with the very tip of the tweezers, and then I'm just going to pull on this long string, and see how my knot's tightening down on the tip of my tweezers? And then I'm going to push on that knot, take my tweezers out, and then pull on the long string to tighten that knot. So ideally, if I did this right, I should have a nice tight knot that's right up against my bead. Then I'm going to slide down another bead, and I'm going to do it again. So again, right hand, left hand. Beads in the right hand, wrap them around the left hand, and then pull them through the knot. Take your tweezers, follow through the same way you just pulled through. Try not to stab yourself. Grab with the tip of your tweezers right next to the bead, and then pull. You want to make sure that you're pulling perpendicular to your tweezers, because if you start to pull towards the tip of your tweezers, your knot's going to fall off probably before you're ready. So just pull straight up, push, and push and pull. So around, through, tweezers, tighten, pull a bead down, around, just so what I'm doing, just for anybody who's having trouble kind of sussing it out because of the camera positions, is I've got this wrapped around my non-dominant hand. I do have it crossing right here under my thumb. Hi, Upsy Shelly. I will tell you in just a second. So the X is under my thumb, and then I'm taking my dominant hand and I'm just reaching through my pincher fingers to grab that, pull it through. Then I'm going to take my tweezers, I'm going to follow through the knot and grab, and then do my tightening. So we had a question about what is this random string hanging at the beginning. So this is actually from the start of my piece where I did a bullion start. It's just being grouchy tonight. And so what that is that's actually the, will you focus please? Camera, like, thank you. So that is where I took the thread and brought it up through this purl, through my bullion, back down through this purl, and then I tied it off. So this is the end of that first tie. And at the end of the project, I'm going to glue that, and then we're going to cut it off. All right. So, again, beads are in my dominant hand. Non-dominant hand is my base. I'm just going to wrap around, pull through, follow with my tweezers, pull, and push. So at a regular knotting speed, for someone like me, this looks like this. So again, you just slide, you wrap, you pull, and tighten. Again, slide, wrap, pull, tighten. So you can see it actually goes pretty fast once you get the hang of it. Once again, another slowed down. So slide up your bead, take your non-dominant hand, wrap your cord around it. Make sure you cross it. Okay, if you don't cross it, you're not going to have a knot there. And you're going to pull through. So the pulling through is going to get a little more awkward, but not terribly awkward as your knotted piece gets longer. And then you're just going to follow through with your tweezers. Grab, pull to tighten. And then you just continue. So I'm going to do a bullion finish on my other side as well. So I want to make sure that when I'm knotting, I don't get too carried away. I don't want to do the knot between these last two beads here because that's where my finishing knot. That's where this knot has to go, and so if I do a knot there and then try and put that other knot on top of it, it just gets really bulky. And especially since this is going to be in the front of your necklace, you don't want that kind of ugly bulkiness. The whole point of doing the bullion was to make this, you know, look pretty and neat and clean and all of that. So I'm about halfway through the strand. So Upsy Shelly, where are you joining us from? I know we've got California and we've got Canada on and other cool places. Obviously we're in Texas, Florida. That's awesome. I was just talking to one of my favorite clients in Florida. Actually wasn't, but I was participating in a conversation with one of my great clients who lives here and one of her dear friends who's also a great client of mine who lives in Florida. So awesome, Florida represent. Lori, did you ever answer my question about the weather? I'm just curious.
I want to live vicariously.
And Heather wants to live vicariously. I mean, it wasn't that warm today.
No. Well,
But
unless you were running around a very long table full of 13-year-olds.
well, there is that. Yes. And Real Kitty's in Oklahoma, so you're close to us. Ooh, high 30s in Edmonton.
Wow.
That's exciting.
Like midsummer.
I know, right? Oh, that's cool. So, Real Kitty, do you come to Dallas? And if so, have you been to the actual, because we actually have a physical store, Beading Dreams. We're on Lover's Lane. So if you haven't been, you should come see us next time you're in Dallas. Okay. So I'm getting there. I'm down to my last 4 beads. So once again, don't make this knot, Allison, okay? I'm reminding myself and all of you. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Sometimes when you're knotting with 2 cords, you'll get these little, you can see it right there. Do you see how you can see that airspace where you can see my background through the knot? That is not ideal. That is not what you want. Oh, cool. So double Floridas. So what you do when this happens is you're going to very gently pull on each string separately. And I guessed right the first time. Go me. Half the time I don't. And you want to just tighten down that one errant piece of thread. Otherwise what's going to happen is when you tighten down your knot, it's going to have a little bump, like a little loop on it. And that's, like I said, that's not ideal. That's not what you want. And Caleb says, hot and rainy in Florida. I feel like that's kind of Florida's MO. Oh God, I cannot even imagine coming from Edmonton to Florida in August. Oh my God. That just sounds hellacious. When I used,
Your body would go into shock.
I know, right? Yeah, Florida is pretty intense with
My hair is so curly in Florida.
the humidity. But yeah, I used to go visit my grandmother in the summer, and she lived in Savannah, but she would take us, would take me and her. That's the us to which I'm referring. We never went to Disney or SeaWorld, but there's kind of like a bargain, or was when I was young, bargain version of SeaWorld called Marineland, and it was in the north of Florida, so it was closer to drive to from Savannah, and I would sit as close as I could to the jumping shows like the dolphins and stuff, so that I could get splashed because it was so damn hot. Just gross. Okay, so now I'm ready to do the other side. It is a different kind of heat than Arizona, though I will tell you, just having spent a week in Arizona, my body hates the desert. It just does not like it. I felt like I was just being sucked dry, and I was drinking a lot of water. I was drinking about a gallon of water a day, and still my lips were chapped, my skin was peeling. It was, oh, and I go to the desert every year, but it just, the desert and I do not get along. To each their own, but not a desert girl, never will be. I would rather deal with the humidity in Florida than the Arizona desert, just because at least I don't feel like my skin is going to start bleeding at some point. Like if you look at my last 2 lives from Tucson, my lips are so cracked. Okay, so now I'm going to put my bouillon on, and I'm just going to pull that down so that it's kind of gently sitting against that last bead, and then put on my loop, and then I just need to bend that bouillon aside enough that I can get my needle down through that bead. So once again, I'm turning around and going back the other way, so down towards my necklace. so. Pull that all the way through. And so what we want to happen here when we tighten this is we want it to look like this side. So I'm just going to pull, and what I want is, ideally I want this all to pull through without making a big gap between these two beads. So let's see how I do. Usually I'll kind of hold those two beads, and I'll hold them so you can see them, and I'm just going to pull this through and give it a nice tug. Okay, so I didn't do too bad. I want to make this space here though, I want this to go away, because even though I'm going to put a knot in there, it's not going to fill up all that space. You still have to, you've got to have these tied up against each other, and the knot will make room for itself. Everyone who, every time I've ever been like, I'm going to leave space for the knot, it never works. Like, just don't. The knot will make room for itself. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to tie this off around this strand of beads. So to do that, I'm just going to go around my fingers and my beads, and I want to cross right where I want that knot to wind up. So that's going to be between my last bead and my second to last bead. Then I'm going to pull that all through, and then I can just take my fingers out, and what's going to happen if I pull on this cord is it's just going to tighten down right between those last two beads. And then I'm going to do that one more time. So making two knots. So again, around and through, and pull down and give it a good shimmy to make sure that it's tight. Obviously you don't want to break it, but see, look at that. The knot made room for itself. So now I need to go grab some hypo cement, so I'll be right back. So this is hypo cement. This is the type of glue that's best for gluing your knots. It is nice because it has this little pinpoint applicator, so you can get it right in there without getting it all over the beads. If you do get it on the beads though, don't worry, it will come right off. You can just scrape it off. So I'm just going to dab glue onto my last knot and onto my first knot. And I just want to make sure that I get those knots completely saturated with glue. And then I want to give my glue a few minutes to dry before I trim my knots. And this is especially important when you're doing your bullion finish, because these knots, these knots right here, this is what's holding your whole piece together. And if you don't let them dry before you cut them, what can happen is your knot can actually untie itself and create a really large gap between these last two beads, and then you just have to start over. There's really no rescuing it at that point. So I'm just going to set that aside and let it dry, and let's see. So once again, you can use your little clip rings and carabiners and whatnot to put on whatever kinds of charms you want, or you can just use, cool like that in the front or on the side, even without anything on it, is really neat. And of course, if you want to wear it like a traditional necklace, you just take whatever you fastened it with, flip that to the back, and you just have a regular traditional knotted pearl strand. So it's pretty versatile like that. So just a couple of different little types of things. Okay, so this is a screw carabiner, so that one's just got a little threaded bit there. I will say that the reason I defaulted to using these larger rings is I had an incident in Tucson where I really wanted to put one of these on the necklace I was wearing, and the loops weren't big enough. So you obviously need to make sure you got loops big enough to fit whatever you want to put on there. So you've got the cool rainbowy one. This one is actually one of my favorites. This one's actually a push lobster. This pearl strand smee was $41. And I like these because they're really easy to put on, because all you have to do is push and drop that on there. And then these look really fun when you wear them to the side. You don't even have to have pendants on them to make them look cool, which is nice. Also, it's a little bit longer, so if you're trying to, again, if you're trying to make your neck mess work, having versatility as far as length goes is really, really important, because even though the idea of a neck mess is for it to be messy and overlapping, you know, it's like there's a proper amount of messy and overlapping, and then there's just messy. The other thing you can do is you can actually clip several together if you want to lengthen it. And then if I were going to do pendants on there, I would probably use like a round one, and I'll just do this one little key for now. So I'm just going to pop that onto, so that one's a push as well. Sometimes they're push and sometimes they're pull. Like this one is a pull one, so it pulls open. It's got a hinge there. So, you know, each one's different. You just have to remember what you have. Okay, so now this is dry enough that I can trim. So I'm going to take my sharp scissors and I'm going to get in there as close to that knot as I possibly can. And so I find that the best way to do this is to kind of bend my pearls a little bit, not so much that the knots get misshapen, but that'll let me get my scissors right in there and snip that off. So you want to have a minimum of, you know, of little thread floof coming out to the side. And minimum in a perfect world would actually be none. I botched that cut a little bit. Let's see if I can cut a little bit more off. And then if you did botch your cut a little bit, like I did mine, you can see there's floofs, there's feather floofs or thread floofs coming out the side. You can actually take your glue and just put a little bit more, just put a dab on top of those floofs, and sometimes it'll just kind of cover them up and seal them down. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Like so. So there's my knotted strand, all finished. And then I can take my little round piece, and so the way that I would wear that is I would put that on. Usually I will, oh hello hair, what are you doing? Usually I'll pre-stage my pendants, and then you're just going to take your, find the ends of your necklace, and you're just going to drop one in there, and then I'm going to find the other one and drop that in there as well. It's a little easier if you have a mirror. And there you go. So that actually works pretty well with the necklaces that I have on today. So that is it. That's knotting for the neck mess. The price of the necklace, Amy, let's see. If I add the knotting labor, we'll go ahead and do that hourly. Figure it took me 1 hour, slightly less than. Do you want with the little ring, with the clippy ring, Amy? Blah. My brain apparently just decided your name was Mary, except my brain also knows that your name is not Mary. That's somebody different, but they all tried to come out at once. So, all right. So with the clippy, this particular clippy is $10. So, about $81 before tax would be the price of this finished pearl necklace. All right, so that's it. That was knotting for the neck mess. See, easier than you think, right? Always fun. And once again, tons of versatility with this style. And if you don't want it to be trendy, just turn it around and there you go. You got your regular knotted pearl strand. I'm really a fan of this because I don't love the look of just a large knotted strand that's not broken up in the center. I just feel like it, on me, I just feel like it's heavy. There's no objectivity there. That is completely subjective, but I redid a bunch of my kind of chunkier necklaces like this a while back, and I wear them so much more than I used to. So that's it for knotting for the neck mess. I'm Allison from Beading Dreams in Dallas, Texas. We have an actual brick and mortar retail bead store. We're here on Lovers Lane in Dallas. Our current hours are Monday through Saturday from 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. You can find us on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, with complimentary tutorials starting next week, Wednesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time. Every other Friday, we do a Zoom Crafty Cocktail Hour. If you want information on that, you can email us, beadingdreamsdallas, thanks Caleb, @gmail.com, and we can send you the information for that. We can add you to the email list. We will send out a reminder for the Zoom every, typically on Thursday of the Zoom week. And then starting next week, we're going to do Saturday sales starting at 6:30. But tonight, it's our last 7:30 Saturday sale, so that means that we will be back. Thanks, Lisa. You too. We'll be back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, with a live merchandise sale in just 30 minutes at 7:30. That will only be on Twitch and also Facebook but not YouTube. So if you want to hop over to one of those platforms, Lisa, we'd love to see you. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining in, and we'll see you back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream next time. Thanks, y'all.